What kind of husband serves divorce papers to his wife in her own workplace waiting room over one tiny kiss in a park? How did a quiet IT guy go from hurt and confused to calling a random Tuesday afternoon the last day of our marriage, while my coworkers stared? Why does everyone act like I'm the villain when all I wanted was to feel wanted for 5 minutes? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Ione Merrick, and I always thought I would be the kind of wife people admired. I imagined people saying I had it all together, that I balanced work and motherhood and marriage like it was easy. When I looked at my life that morning, I told myself it was close enough. I had a husband, a daughter, a small apartment, a safe job at the clinic front desk. On paper, it looked fine. But inside, I felt like something was missing, and I decided that the missing piece was not my fault. Graham sat at the kitchen table with his laptop open and a mug of black coffee. He barely looked up when I came in, or at least that is how I chose to see it. He asked if I could hand him his charger, and I thought he should have said I looked nice first. I had new lipstick on. I had even curled my hair a little, which I did not do often on weekday mornings. When he asked if I had seen his blue tie, I answered that I was not his mother, and he smiled in that tired way he always had. I told myself that smile meant he did not care. Ella sat in her booster seat eating cereal, milk on her chin. She asked if Daddy would pick her up from daycare, and he said he would try because he had a big project at work. I heard the word try and chose to ignore the part about the project. In my head, I turned it into a story where I did everything for our daughter, and he only showed up when it was easy. I told myself I was alone, even though he was right there at the same table. He asked what time my lunch break would be that day because he wanted to see if we could meet. I said the schedule at the clinic was crazy, and I did not know. That was half true. Most days I could guess, but I did not want to promise him anything. I wanted him to feel a little uncertain. I thought maybe that would make him chase me more. I said the phones never stopped ringing, and that I barely had time to breathe at work, and he nodded and pushed his glasses up his nose. He said he knew I worked hard. I told myself he only said that so I would stop complaining. When he left, he bent down and kissed Ella's head. She grabbed his sleeve and told him not to forget the drawing she made for him, and he folded it and put it in his bag. He touched my shoulder on the way out and said to have a good day. I pulled away a little. I told myself I was sending a message, that he should feel how distant I felt. I did not say thank you. I just reminded him not to be late with daycare, as if he was the one who needed constant correction. On the bus to the clinic, I stared out the window and watched the city slide past. The same streets, the same corner cafe, the same park with the duck pond. That park had become my quiet spot. I liked how the light looked on the water during lunch. I liked how easy it was to breathe under the trees. I had started going there once or twice a week when the stress at the front desk got too heavy. At least, that is how I explained it to myself. I did not say out loud that I had also started timing those walks to when I knew Leo would be there. Leo was younger. He worked part-time at a coffee shop and played guitar in the park on his days off. The first time we spoke, he had asked if I worked nearby because he had seen me in my scrubs before. I told him I was at the clinic and that I came there to escape patients. He laughed and said everyone wanted to escape something. After that, I found reasons to walk past his bench more often. I told myself it was harmless, just a little attention, just proof that I was still interesting. That day at the clinic, the morning crawled by. I checked patients in, handed forms, smiled on command. My cheeks hurt from the fake kindness. Mara, one of the nurses, came up to the desk during a quiet moment and asked how things were at home. I said Graham was still obsessed with his work and his computers, and that I felt like an extra piece of furniture in our apartment. I said he was dull, careful, safe, the kind of man who would never cheat, but also the kind of man who would let his wife fade into the background. Mara said at least he was steady, and I felt annoyed at her for not taking my side harder. When lunch finally came, I told Dr. Ortiz I needed my full hour because I had barely slept. She nodded and reminded me to clock the time correctly. I left the building and walked straight toward the park. I did not even pretend to think about another route. In my head, I said I needed fresh air. In my heart, I hoped Leo would be on his usual bench. He was there, with his guitar case open beside him. He waved when he saw me. I told myself it was just polite to go over. We talked about nothing important at first. He asked how work was, and I said patients were rude, and the staff took me for granted. I added that my husband did not notice when I was tired. I watched his face as I painted Graham as distant and cold. Leo asked if Graham knew I was here with him so often. I said my husband did not pay attention to where I was, as long as the house kept running and Ella was fine. I made it sound like I lived with a stranger. I sat down beside Leo on the bench. The pond shimmered in front of us. Children ran past, throwing bread at the ducks. I thought about Ella for a second and pushed the thought away. I did not want to feel guilty. I wanted to feel seen. Leo brushed my arm by accident when he reached for his bag, and I made more of the touch than it was. I told myself it meant something. I told myself that my body was waking up again, that I had been frozen beside Graham for years. When Leo said he did not want to get in the middle of someone's marriage, I laughed and said there was nothing to get in the middle of. I said we were more like roommates. I said we barely touched each other. I left out the nights when Graham rubbed my shoulders after long shifts, or the silly texts he sent with Ella's drawings. Those did not fit the story I was trying to build. I needed him to look like the villain, so I would not have to see myself clearly. I leaned closer, saying I was tired of feeling invisible. I did not ask if he wanted me to. I did not stop to think. I just decided that because I was unhappy, the rules did not fully apply to me. My lips brushed his, quick and warm. It was not long. It was not some movie scene with music playing. It was short, simple, messy. My heart jumped, and for a second, I felt powerful. Right away, I told myself it was only a small kiss, just a moment, not real cheating. I promised myself I would not even think about it later. On the way back to the clinic, I checked my phone. Graham had sent a message asking how my day was going and saying he might be late again because of the project. I stared at his words and felt annoyed. I told myself he did not deserve the truth if he could not even show up at lunchtime. I replied that everything was fine and that I was busy. I added a tired face emoji to make him feel guilty for not coming. That evening at home, he watched me more closely than usual. He asked how my lunch had been and if I had gone to the cafe or the park. I felt a quick spike of fear, then anger. I said he was being paranoid and that I was not a teenager who needed to report her every step. He mentioned that the car dash cam had caught a glimpse of me at the park bench during his own break when he drove past. I felt caught, so I laughed and said he was acting like a stalker. I told him I just went to sit by the water because work was stressful. I made him feel like the problem for even asking. The next day, I woke up angry instead of guilty. That felt safer. Guilt makes you small. Anger makes you tall. I decided to be tall. Graham had already left for work when I came into the kitchen. His bowl was rinsed and turned upside down on the rack, his mug in the same place as always. Everything neat, everything careful. On the fridge, he had pinned Ella's new drawing, a messy heart with 3 stick figures inside. Over my head, he had written Mom with a little smiley face. I looked at it and felt nothing but irritation. I thought if he cared so much, he wouldn't have made me feel lonely in the first place. Ella came out in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. She asked where Daddy was. I said he had already gone to work because he loves work more than breakfast with us. It was a joke, sort of, but not really. She frowned and said he promised to eat with her. I shrugged and told her, That's what happens when people are too busy. I knew she would repeat that to him. Part of me wanted her to. Let him feel like the bad guy for once. At the clinic, the morning was slow. My mind was not on patients or insurance cards. It was on the way Graham had watched me the night before. Not shouting, not accusing, just looking at me like he was trying to see something behind my words. When he asked again if I went to the park, I made a big show of being offended until he stopped. He said he didn't want to fight. That almost made me smile. If he refused to fight, I could call him weak later. Either way, I would win. By late morning, I was tired of guessing what he thought. I needed people who would say out loud that I was right. So I messaged Nadia and asked if she could meet me at the Riverside Cafe near the clinic on my lunch break. She replied with a string of heart emojis and said of course she needed all the gossip. That made me feel better. At least someone understood how dramatic my life really was. Mara leaned on the counter and asked if everything was okay at home. She said I looked tense. I told her I was fine, just tired, and rolled my eyes. She lowered her voice and asked if Graham and I had argued. I said he was doing this thing where he made a huge deal out of nothing and then acted like the victim. I did not say what the nothing was. I wanted her to fill in the blank with something small, like a forgotten chore or a late text. She nodded slowly and told me I deserved peace. That was enough for me. I took that little line and stretched it until it covered everything. My lunch break came, and I hurried down the street to the cafe. The place was busy, full of clinking cups and low music. Nadia was at a corner table, already filming her latte art for her story. She waved and shouted my name loud enough that people turned. I liked that. Attention is easier to hold when someone else starts it for you. She asked what the big emergency was. I said it wasn't an emergency, just my whole marriage. I let that sit there for a second, then sighed and looked out the window like some sad movie wife. She leaned closer and asked what Graham had done now. That was the opening I wanted. I told her, very calmly, that I had kissed someone at the park. I said it the way you might say you forgot to buy milk. Her eyes went wide, and then she grinned. She asked who, if it was serious, if I liked him. I lifted my shoulders and said it was just a foolish moment with a guy I see there sometimes, nothing deep. I added that it was literally a few seconds, nothing more. I put a lot of weight on the word literally, like numbers could make it clean. Nadia asked what Graham said when he found out. I said he was losing his mind, acting like I had run off in the night. I told her he brought up the dashcam and the family location app and asked questions like I was on trial. I did not mention how soft his voice had been. I told her he was interrogating me and checking up on me like some jealous creep. She sat back and snorted. She said men are so fragile, always crying over attention they don't give. That sentence felt warm and sweet. I let it sink in. I said, exactly, he ignores me and then wants to act like he owns every second of my day. I stopped short of calling it abuse, but I let the word controlling slip out. I said he checked where I was on the app and made comments, like I wasn't allowed to sit by the water. I didn't say that we had agreed to share our locations for safety when Ella was born. That detail would have ruined the mood. Mara came in a few minutes later, still in her scrubs, grabbing a quick coffee. She saw us and came over. Nadia asked if she knew my big secret. Mara shook her head, curious but cautious. I liked that mix. It made me feel powerful, like I was dropping a bomb in a quiet room. I told Mara the story again, shaping it more with every retell. I said a guy at the park teased me, said I was too pretty to look so sad, and dared me to kiss him. I laughed as I said it, like it was silly and harmless. I left out that I had sought Leo out, that I had leaned in first. I said I kissed him for half a second, then pulled away and felt guilty. That part was false. I had not felt guilty until later. But it sounded better. Mara asked if Graham knew all those details. I said yes, and that he was acting like I had betrayed him on some deep level. I said he was talking about trust and respect and all those big words. Nadia rolled her eyes and told me he was being dramatic, that men should be happy, other people still want their wives. She said if her boyfriend got a free "proof my girl is hot" moment, he would brag, not sulk. A few people at nearby tables smirked. They were listening. I did not mind. I liked it. Mara looked less sure. She said a kiss is still a line for many people. I felt annoyance flash through me. I reminded her it was just one kiss and that nothing else happened. I said if he respected me, he would trust me when I said it was nothing. I made it sound like Graham's problem was lack of trust, not my action. I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. I snapped a picture of my half-finished drink and Nadia's dramatic face and added text. Imagine losing your mind over one tiny mistake. I hit post before I could think too hard. Nadia laughed and told me to tag her. I did. It felt like locking in my version of events in front of everyone we knew. On the way back to the clinic, I checked my notifications. A few friends sent laughing faces. One wrote that men are babies. I smiled to myself. Every little comment was another brick in the wall between me and any real responsibility. When I got home that evening, Graham was sitting on the couch with Ella, watching a cartoon. He looked up when I walked in, but his eyes went straight past my face to my phone. He asked in a soft voice if I had a good lunch. I said it was fine. He asked who I had gone out with. I said just my sister and a coworker, like it was boring. He nodded and said he had seen a post. I felt my heart jump. He asked what I meant by one tiny mistake. I told him he was reading too much into a joke, that not everything was about him. I said my followers understood irony. I could see the hurt on his face, and for a moment, I almost softened. Then I remembered how small I felt when he looked at the dashcam footage, and I hardened again. He said the kiss hurt him more because of the lies after, not just the act itself. I told him he was guilt-tripping me, that he wanted me to crawl. I said, if he trusted me, this would not be a big deal. I watched his shoulders drop. He said he did not want to argue in front of Ella. I said he was the one starting it. In my mind, I ticked off another point for myself. If he would not stand up and shout, I could call him weak. If he did, I could call him scary. Either way, I would not be the one to blame. The next morning, Graham did not touch my shoulder when I walked into the kitchen. That was the first thing I noticed. He stood by the counter, pouring coffee, his back straight, his mouth tight. Ella chatted to herself at the table, singing little pieces of a song from her show. The air felt different, still, heavy, like the pause before a storm that never comes. He asked what time my shift ended. His voice was calm, too calm. I said the usual, late afternoon. He nodded and said he might be home a bit later because of some personal things he needed to handle after work. That phrase bothered me. Personal things. It sounded secret. I asked what that meant. He said just errands. I told him it was nice he had time for errands, but not for his wife. He did not argue. He just put his mug in the sink and told Ella to listen to me and have a good day. On the bus to the clinic, I replayed the look on his face from the night before. Hurt, but shut down. That used to be my least favorite version of him. At least, anger meant passion. Silence felt like I was shouting into a cushion. I told myself he was being manipulative, trying to make me feel bad without saying anything. I said in my head that he was weaponizing his calm, which sounded smart enough that it must be true. At the front desk, I tried to act normal. I checked in patients, answered calls, smiled with my reception face. Every now and then my phone buzzed. Nadia sent screenshots of replies to my story from yesterday. People had reacted with laughing emojis, with "men are so dramatic," with "you deserve better." I scrolled through them like they were proof in a case I was winning. Mara came by the desk with a file in her hand. She asked quietly if Graham was okay. She said she had messaged him, and he seemed really sad. That annoyed me. I wanted people to see him as the overreacting one, not the sad puppy. I told her he was fine, just sulking because I would not cry and beg. I said he liked to act like a martyr when he didn't get his way. She raised her eyebrows a bit, like she did not fully buy it, but she did not argue. When there was a gap between patients, I slipped my phone out and opened the chat with Leo. I had not heard from him since the kiss. I typed that the whole thing had caused unnecessary drama and added a laughing emoji to make it light. I said my husband was freaking out over nothing. I said Leo should feel special because clearly one little kiss had so much power. I read it twice, liked how it sounded, and pressed send. He did not reply right away. I told myself he was busy. In the meantime, I checked Graham's profile picture in my messages. It was still a photo of us at the beach with Ella on his shoulders. My stomach twisted, but I called it hunger and got up to refill the printer paper. Just before lunch, my phone buzzed again. Leo had finally replied. He said he was not sure he wanted to be involved if my marriage was a mess. He said he did not want trouble with some angry husband. That annoyed me more than it scared me. I typed back that Graham was not the angry type, just the sulky, silent type. I said he would never do anything. He just liked to talk about trust. I wrote that word in quotes. I did not mention the way Graham's face had gone white when he asked about the dash cam. At lunch, I grabbed a sandwich from the vending machine and sat in the tiny staff room. Mara came in, opened the fridge, and asked if I was okay. I said of course, why wouldn't I be? She said I seemed on edge. I shrugged and said my husband was doing that thing where he moved into the guest room to make some big statement. I rolled my eyes. Mara paused in the doorway and asked if he really had moved out of the bedroom. I said yes, over one kiss. I made sure she heard how ridiculous that sounded. She said that sounded serious, not childish. That annoyed me. I said he was just trying to punish me, to make me look like the crazy one. I told her some men love to pull away, and then say it is the woman's fault when she reacts. She did not answer. She just said she hoped we figured it out. That felt like a soft way of saying she did not agree with me, but she did not want to fight. After work, I took longer than usual to get home. I stopped at a shop to look at makeup I did not need. I scrolled through my phone, waiting for Leo to say something nicer. Instead, another message came from him. He wrote that we should probably call it, that he didn't want to be a reason a family broke up. I felt a flash of anger. I wrote back that if my family broke, it would be because my husband could not handle the idea that someone else might find me attractive. I told Leo he was flattering himself if he thought he had that much power. Then I put my phone away and decided he was a coward too. When I got home, the apartment was quiet. Ella was at daycare. Graham had texted earlier saying he would pick her up. His message was polite, almost formal. He said he would also stop by the store for milk. Nothing about us. Nothing about last night. That silence scratched at my nerves. In the bedroom, half his clothes were gone from our shared dresser. His side of the wardrobe looked thin. For a second, my chest tightened. Then I told myself he was just trying to scare me. I walked down the hall and stopped at the guest room. The door was half open. I could see the edge of his suitcase tucked by the wall, his laptop open on the desk, a small notebook next to it. He sat there in his work shirt, sleeves rolled, typing slowly. He did not notice me at first. On the screen, I saw a spreadsheet with columns labeled days, pickups, schedule. It took a moment to understand. Then he clicked into his email, and a subject line at the top popped into view before he scrolled. Family law, initial consultation. My heart skipped. I pushed the door slightly, making it creak. He looked up and closed the laptop more than halfway, but not all the way. I asked what he was doing. He said he was looking at calendars. I laughed and said he was making it sound like he was planning a war. He said he did not want to fight, he just needed to be clear. That word again, clear. It made me feel like he was drawing lines without me. I stepped into the room and asked if he really thought he needed a lawyer. I kept my voice light, like the idea was funny. He said he wanted to know his options, for the sake of Ella. That stung. I told him he was being cruel, dragging our daughter into adult business. I said calling a lawyer over a kiss was insane. He replied that it wasn't just the kiss. He said it was the lies, the public posts, the way I talked about him to our families. I told him he was twisting everything, trying to make me out as some monster. I said I was the one who felt unseen and unappreciated. I said if he had made me feel wanted, none of this would have happened. He looked at me for a long time, and then said something that made my stomach drop. He said he had to protect himself and Ella now, because he could not trust me to protect us. I told him that was dramatic. I said he was acting like I was dangerous, when all I did was kiss someone and vent online. He did not raise his voice. He just said he was done talking in circles, and that he would handle things properly from now on. I hated that word on his lips, properly. It sounded like a threat without any raised volume. That night, we slept in separate rooms. I lay in our bed, scrolling through my phone, staring at the same messages. Graham's side of the bed felt cold and too big. I told myself I did not miss him, just the idea of somebody always there. From the hall, I heard the faint sound of his laptop closing, the soft click of the guest room door locking. My name was the one on the lease, but that evening, it felt like I was the guest in my own life. Graham sent a short message during the day saying his mother wanted to see us. He added that it might be good to talk with family. The tone was polite, almost formal. I stared at the screen and read it as a move in a game, not as concern. I told myself he wanted to turn everyone against me before I could tell my side, so I decided I would not let that happen. I would get there first. After my shift, I picked up Ella from daycare. She ran into my arms and asked if we were going to Grandma Angela's. I said yes, and she clapped. That bothered me a little. Angela had always been warm to me, but she was his mother first. I thought if I did not control the story, she would side with him without thinking. On the drive over, Ella asked if Daddy was in trouble. That caught me off guard. I asked why she would think that. She said he had looked sad and quiet in the morning when he dropped her off the other day. I told her grown-ups sometimes have moods, and it was nothing to worry about. Then, because I could not help myself, I added that he was upset because he did not like when Mommy had friends. It was a simple line, but I knew she might repeat it. Planting seeds became a habit before I even noticed. Angela's house smelled like laundry detergent and soup, like always. She opened the door and hugged Ella first, then me. Her hug was polite, not tight. I felt that difference. Graham was already inside, sitting on the couch with Sam. They both stood when we came in. Graham's notebook lay on the coffee table, closed but present, like a quiet witness. Angela said she wanted us to talk calmly. She offered tea. I said I did not need tea. I just needed my husband to stop making a drama out of nothing. I heard how sharp my own voice sounded and tried to soften it with a sigh. I said I was tired and did not want another fight. That made me look like the reasonable one. Graham asked if I could sit so we could explain the story from both sides. He said he wanted clarity. That word again. I sat in the armchair, crossing my legs, holding my phone like a shield. Ella went to play with some toys in the corner. She hummed to herself, but I knew her ears still worked fine. I started talking before anyone asked me to. I said Graham had decided to move into the guest room over one simple kiss that meant nothing. I said he was acting like I had destroyed our whole life when it was just a brief, stupid moment. I said he was calling lawyers and making notes like he was preparing for court, which I called ridiculous and cruel. I made sure to say those parts first, so they would stick. Angela kept her voice even. She asked when the kiss happened and if I had told Graham right away. I did not like the wording. It sounded like lines in some official form. I said it was a few days ago, during my lunch break, and I said I told him the same day when he asked why I seemed off. That was not fully true. I had only given him small pieces at first, but saying I told him right away made me look honest. Graham quietly said that was not exactly how it went. He reminded us that he had seen the dash cam and that I had laughed it off before admitting anything. He said he had to pull each detail out like a splinter. I rolled my eyes and said he always liked to exaggerate. I said he was framing it like I had some big secret boyfriend, when it was just a guy in the park who said something nice when I felt invisible. Sam sat on the edge of the other chair, arms crossed. He asked if the guy in the park was someone I still talked to. That annoyed me. I said it was none of his business who I smiled at on my own time. Graham said calmly that my own posts made it everyone's business now. He mentioned my story about one tiny mistake. Angela looked at me, her eyebrows slightly raised. I felt heat rise up my neck. I said social media was just jokes and that everyone knew not to take it seriously. I told them I was venting and that Graham was spying on my posts instead of talking to me like a man. I used that phrase on purpose. Like a man. It was meant to sting. I saw Sam's jaw tighten. Angela did not shout. She said quietly that she understood feeling lonely in a marriage, but that kissing someone else was still cheating to many people. She said it could break trust in a way that was hard to repair. I felt cornered, so I leaned into the victim role. I told her she never really liked me, that she always preferred the version of her son who did everything right and never made mistakes. I said the second I did something human, she was ready to put all the blame on me. Graham spoke my name, asking me to stop turning this into a war between me and his mother. He said the core issue was that I had lied and then mocked him publicly when he was hurting. I told him he was trying to make me look like a monster to the only people he had left. I said I was the one who felt abandoned long before that kiss. Sam shifted and said he had seen Nadia's posts, the ones calling Graham crazy and insecure. He said the whole thing did not look like a private mistake. It looked like I was making a show out of his pain. That made me snap. I said my sister was defending me because no one else was. I said men always ran to their families to play the victim when they got called out. Ella came over then and climbed onto the couch beside Graham. She asked why everyone sounded upset. Angela told her softly that grown-ups were having a serious talk, but that everything would be okay. Ella looked at me and asked if Daddy was leaving our house. The question hit me like a slap. Before anyone else could answer, I laughed and said Daddy was being silly and dramatic, and that he just needed to calm down. I turned even that into a dig at him, right in front of his mother. Graham's face went still. He told Ella that he loved her very much no matter what. His voice shook a little. I told myself he was acting for effect, trying to win sympathy. The idea that he was just simple and hurt did not fit well in my story, so I pushed it away. After a while, Angela suggested we take Ella to the playground nearby so she could play and we could cool off. The walk there was stiff. Graham held Ella's hand. I walked a step ahead. Angela and Sam walked behind us, speaking in low voices I could not fully hear. I told myself they were plotting. At the playground, Ella ran to the slide and the swings, laughing with other children. Graham went to push her on the swing, and I sat on a bench, arms folded. The evening light made everything look softer, but I felt sharp inside. Angela came to sit next to me. She said she was worried, not just about Graham, but about Ella. She said all this public fighting and posting could hurt her in the long run. I said she was overreacting and that kids were stronger than people thought. I said it was better for Ella to see her mother standing up for herself than shrinking to keep a man comfortable. Across the playground, I saw Graham take out his notebook and write something while Ella ran to the climbing frame. Sam stood nearby, leaning on the fence. I narrowed my eyes and asked Angela what he was writing. She said she did not know. I said it was creepy, him taking notes like some inspector. Angela said maybe he wanted to remember things clearly if this went to some formal place. That made my skin prickle. I said if he truly loved me, he would not bring outsiders into our marriage. When we walked back to the cars, the distance between us felt heavier than the child in my arms. Graham said he wanted to talk soon about practical things, like schedules and money. I told him he was already talking to his notebook more than to me. He replied that the notebook remembered better than I did. I laughed in his face and told him he could write all he wanted, that it would not change who looked like the crazy one if he went forward with this. Inside, a small part of me wondered what exactly he was collecting in that book. The larger part decided it did not matter. In my own mind, as long as I stayed loud enough and sure enough, I could bend the story any way I wanted. The birthday party was supposed to be simple. Balloons, cake, noise, small talk. Instead, it became another stage, and I decided I was not going to waste a stage. It was the son of one of Ella's daycare friends. The party was in a community hall with sticky floors and bright plastic chairs. When we walked in, the room was full of kids running around with paper crowns, and parents stood in tight circles, holding coffee cups and smiling too big. Nadia met us at the door, already buzzing. She had her phone in her hand, ready to capture anything she thought might be content. Graham came in a few minutes after us, carrying the gift bag I had forgotten on the kitchen table. He set it on the present pile without looking at me. He bent down to straighten Ella's crown and told her she looked like a queen. He laughed when she twirled. Watching them, you would think we were a normal family. That irritated me. I felt like he was trying to win the crowd in quiet ways, while I was stuck looking like the unstable one for daring to speak. I pulled Nadia to the corner near the snack table. She asked how things were since our visit to Angela's house. I told her nothing had changed, that Graham was still in the guest room, and that he was now carrying that notebook everywhere, like some cheap detective. She rolled her eyes in that dramatic way I loved. She said he was doing what all insecure men do, building a story where they were the victim and the woman was the villain. I said, loud enough for a few parents to hear, that my husband was trying to divorce me over a 5-second kiss in the park. Nadia laughed and repeated 5-second kiss, like it was a joke from a show. A couple of moms glanced over, smiles tight, pretending not to listen. That only pushed me to talk louder. If Graham wanted to make this serious, I would make it public. He stayed on the other side of the room, helping hang a banner that said, "Happy Birthday" in crooked letters. He talked to another dad about something boring, probably work. He kept Ella near him when she ran past, steadying her when she slipped. He didn't come over to me, didn't ask what I was whispering about with my sister. That distance felt like an insult. Nadia nudged me and said I should tell the full story. She said people needed to hear how ridiculous he was being. I hesitated for a moment, then reminded myself that controlling the narrative was everything. So, when there was a gap in the music and someone asked how we knew the birthday boy's family, I stepped into the space. I said we were from daycare, that our kids played together, and then I smiled too brightly and added that it might be one of the last parties we attend as a married couple, since my husband was trying to end our marriage over a kiss that barely counted. The words landed in the group like a dropped glass. Some people laughed nervously, others went quiet. Nadia grinned and lifted her phone, ready to record if anything interesting happened. One of the moms, Mara's friend, asked what I meant. She sounded curious but also cautious. That only made me push harder. I told them about the park, but in my version, it was a random stupid dare with some guy who said I looked pretty when my husband hadn't done that in months. I said it was literally a few seconds, nothing more, and that I had pulled away immediately and felt bad. I called it a tiny mistake. I added that Graham had moved into the guest room and was now talking to lawyers. I used the word lawyers on purpose because I wanted to see their faces. I wanted them to think he was cold and extreme. Nadia muttered that men love to throw the word divorce around to control women. A couple of parents nodded, not wanting to look judgmental. I fed on that. Across the room, I saw Graham glance over. He must have heard the word lawyer because his jaw tightened. He didn't stride over and yell, which a small part of me had expected. He just watched for a second, then turned back to Ella, helping her line up for a game. That calm made me even angrier. I felt like he was refusing to play his assigned role as the loud, obvious villain. Someone asked quietly if he had cheated first. I almost laughed. It would have made everything cleaner if he had. I shook my head and said no, he was too busy with his servers and software to cheat. I said he didn't even notice when I changed my hair, so why would he notice another woman? That got me a few sympathetic looks. I heard myself, and part of me knew I was bending the truth, but the sympathy felt too good to stop. Mara was standing by the door, watching. She came closer and said she thought maybe we shouldn't talk about this here, with all the kids around. I said I refused to be quiet just because it made him uncomfortable. I said I was sick of women hiding the ways men tried to control them. I tossed that word out again. Control. It had become my favorite shield. Then I did the thing that later everyone talked about. I lifted my phone, camera facing both me and Graham in the background with Ella. I said into it, half joking, half not, that my husband wanted to take my child and end our marriage because another man dared to kiss me for 5 seconds in a public park. I said this was what fragile male ego looked like. Nadia snorted with laughter in the background. A few parents looked horrified. 1 or 2 actually pulled out their own phones. Graham's head turned. He saw the phones. He saw mine, pointed in his direction. Our eyes met. For a moment, I thought he would storm over and make a scene. Instead, he walked to the snack table, set down his cup, and told the birthday boy's mother that Ella had to leave a little early because we had family matters to handle. His voice was steady, polite. He thanked her for inviting us. He helped Ella gather her party bag. He did not say a word to me. On the drive home, the air in the car was thick. Ella chatted about the cake, about the balloons, about the silly hat the clown wore. I kept checking my phone, watching the views tick up on my story. Nadia had posted her own clip, shorter and sharper, of me saying the bit about fragile male ego. Comments were already coming in, some cheering me on, some warning me quietly that this might not end well. I ignored the last group. We dropped Ella off at my mother's apartment so she could have a sleepover. I presented it as something fun. Really, I wanted space for the fight I thought we were about to have. On the way back, we stopped at the supermarket because Graham said we needed milk. He parked in a corner of the lot, away from other cars. The sky was turning dark, the air cool. As soon as he put the car in park, I started. I said he had embarrassed me by leaving the party early, that he had made me look like the crazy one. I said he should have defended me when people looked shocked, explained that I was just tired and joking. He kept his hands on the steering wheel, eyes straight ahead. He said quietly that he had never agreed to be part of my show. I laughed in his face. I said it wasn't a show, it was the truth, and that if he couldn't handle people knowing he was dragging his wife toward divorce over nothing, that was his problem. I accused him of trying to control my voice, my story, my friends. I said he was jealous that someone else made me feel alive for a change. He let me talk. When I finally stopped, breath coming fast, he turned to look at me. His expression was not angry, just tired, done. He said he was finished arguing about what counted and what didn't. He said he had asked me for honesty and some basic respect, and instead I had kissed someone else, lied, laughed about it, and then told the whole town he was abusive and controlling. I started to cut in, but he held up a hand. He said he would not raise his voice or call me names because that was not who he was. He said, from that moment on, everything between us would go through proper channels. That phrase sounded cold and official in the quiet car. I asked what that meant, my voice shaking with anger. He said it meant no more circular talks, no more public scenes, no more trying to fix this in front of friends and family. He said he had gotten advice, and he was going to follow it. I told him I would never sign anything, never let him take Ella from me. He said no one was taking her, but he would make sure she had stability, even if that meant not living in the same home as me. The way he said it, calm and clear, hit harder than any shout could have. I called him cruel. I said he was ruining our daughter's life because he couldn't handle his wife being attractive. He did not answer that. He unbuckled his seatbelt, stepped out of the car, and closed the door gently. Through the windshield, I watched him walk toward the strip of buildings at the edge of the lot. Lights glowed in a row of windows. Reflected in the glass of his car window, I could just make out the letters on a sign across the street: Family Law Offices. He did not look back at me as he walked toward that direction. 2 weeks later, I was at the clinic desk when a man in a suit walked in and said my full name in front of everyone. He handed me a thick envelope and left, while patients stared and Mara froze behind the glass. On top was Graham's petition with a court stamp calling today our official separation and setting temporary orders for money, the apartment, and Ella's days and nights. Every lie, every post, every joke about him was quoted inside as proof, and as I read my words standing there in my scrubs, I finally understood he was done.